did want to introduce my friend Rico Brown, my long lost cousin. Not really, but who knows? Probably somewhere along the line. Rico, I'm going to bring him up on stage here real quick. Let's see. Rico, my friend, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dennis. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I know it was no easy feat just sometimes to do these sorts of things, yes. Especially with all the things you're juggling with your business and everything. So can you do me a favor and just give us a quick background, like a minute or two, about kind of your story of some of the challenges that I kind of referred to in the intro and how you got up to this point.
Okay. Well, of course, my name is Rico Brown, Ricky, but I prefer Rico. All my friends, so you guys call me Rico. Like Dennis said, I was actually paralyzed 37 years ago at the age of 14 while participating in a football game. But I never let it down. I've never cried about my disability, and I never will. So I'm an only child. I was raised by a single parent. I have an awesome stepdad, awesome stepmom, my parents were separated when I was about 18, but I have the support of both of them, as well as my step-parents. But nonetheless, as Dennis said, I was paralyzed when I was 14 years old. But despite the fact I chose to live, that was the most important decision I made. And in the process of making that decision, I knew that if I wanted to live and survive in this world, despite my disability, I knew that I could be a productive member of society. So despite being paralyzed, I went on, finished high school, and I went and I got my psychology degree from the University of South Carolina. Went on and got my master's degree in rehab counseling and worked towards my PhD in clinical psychology. So I have a lot of background in counseling and talking and communicating with people. So that, and I also love sales. That was really another thing. My minor is actually in business and in Spanish, so I have a pretty good background, education wise anyway. So
yeah, that's amazing. So what got you interested in freight brokering? How did you stumble across this?
I'll be honest. When I was young, my mom used to buy me Hess trucks. You know, the little Hess 18 trucks, and I always loved those things. There was two things that I always loved, and I talked about it. It was football and trucks. And now, when I actually was paralyzed playing football, but that didn't give my love for trucks. You know, and now I have a lot of friends that became 18-wheeler drivers and things of that nature, and we have common interests. And I wanted to figure out a way that I could actually get involved in the industry as well. So here lately, I actually retired as a counselor back when I was 38 years old. When you make a lot of money in this world, they don't consider you disabled anymore. So because my friends were in the trucking industry, I wanted to figure out a way that I can get involved with it as well. So I started actually doing some dispatching for a friend. And that got me interested. I wanted to figure out what more I could do. So I started Googling freight brokering. I started looking on YouTube, and I came across Dennis Brown. And I said, this seems interesting, so let me take this course. So I took the course, and lo and behold, I found my passion.
I love it.
I was able to move trucks, and that was actually one of my passions. So, hey, I just jumped right into it. It was difficult in the beginning, I'll admit, but your class made it a lot easier. You and Yogi really made things a lot easier for
Yogi Goswami. He's everybody's favorite.
Hey, he's a good guy. And so
he's a great guy.
I'm the type of person, I believe that God puts you on this earth for a reason. And I just found my passion. I love to work with kids. And so I started a nonprofit. But this job here with the freight brokering, this is something that I never imagined that I would like it as much as I do.
It's funny because sorry to interrupt, but I remember right after you got your authority, you messaged me on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
You hadn't even started making any calls yet. You just got your authority. You hadn't even started making any calls yet. And you messaged me and we chatted for a minute. And then fast forward, several months, you kind of reached out to me. I think you reached out to me and
Yes.
and we're like, yeah, I got my first customer, moved my first load. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh man, the first load was actually a blessing. It was because I actually said I got lucky, but you corrected me on that. It's not luck. I
That's
can't
right.
remember the exact words, but I was prepared. Because I have the nonprofit, I had a sponsor that actually builds housing developments, huge housing developments. And I just happened to get my freight broker license. He came to visit me one day, and he needed some materials moved. And I said, I can do it. And he said, how? I was like, easily, I can get a truck. I'm a freight broker now. And he said, well, I have a couple of loads that need to be picked up. Can you get it from here to there? So I said, sure. When you need it moved? And he said, I need it there tomorrow. I was like, well, I don't know if I can get it tomorrow, but maybe the day after. Let's get it. And that was just my first step. And he gave me my first opportunity. And I was prepared.
That's right. We were having that conversation before, and some people would call that luck, and even Rico referred it to luck. But my old wrestling coach in college had a saying, and I don't think he made it up, but he used to use it all the time. He used to say, luck is when opportunity meets preparation, right? Yes. The opportunity surfaced for Rico, but it was his preparation, not only, by getting trained, but all of the preparation that he had and skills he had developed throughout his life, his communication skills, his positive attitude, all the things, despite his disability, right? Despite of that, he was prepared. And that's part of what this training is all about. That's part of what Freight Broker Bootcamp is all about. I can't make the calls for you. I can't give you the customers. I can't do that for you, but I can help prepare you for what's going to happen. Okay? Because you're going to run into negativity. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. I just like to say, hey, never quit on a bad day. And that's the type of advice that you need to just keep going. So let me ask you a few questions, okay? Because I want to try to ask a few questions. First, you mentioned how that first customer was kind of in the building niche. Have you kind of settled in on that being your niche? Is kind of like building supplies, that sort of stuff? Or how does that look?
Anything flatbeds. I love flatbeds.
Gotcha.
Pretty much because he uses flatbed. So, and I built a lot of relationship with flatbed carriers. And because of that, anything flatbed, that's my niche right now. So,
but predominantly, are you moving flatbeds out of South Carolina, or are you moving them anywhere in the country?
I've been moving them primarily out of South Carolina, going up north to maybe the Pennsylvania area, and towards the Florida. I do a lot of Florida, but a lot of it is really in-state as well. So,
see, what Rico's done is he did what I call a hybrid, very much like I did. He picked a piece of equipment. I picked vans. He picked flatbeds.
Yes.
I picked Northeast outbound. He picked South Carolina outbound, right?
Yes.
And so you see how that niche works, right? So he's developing that niche. Again, you've only had your authority for about a year and a half, right?
Pretty much about a year and a half.
Yeah, about a year and a half.
I actually went from moving maybe 2 or 3 loads a month. Well, maybe a month. And then I got a call and said, look, I need help. This same customer, this one customer, I need help. And can you move 10 loads? And I was thinking, I'm pretty sure I can. Then next week he's like, can you move 15 loads? Because he gave me the first 2, and I guess he was just kind of testing me, but he built my confidence. I never took more loads than I could handle. That was one thing. And over a period of time, I became more comfortable, and he gave me more loads.
And how many loads did you do last month or in the last 30 days?
Over the last 30 days, I've done about 120 loads.
Say what?
With minimum profit of how much?
$200 at least. A minimum.
So you guys do the math. Do the math in your head. 120 loads at a minimum of $200 profit.
At least $200 profit.
At least $200 profit. So that's over $20,000 in gross profit. Now you got to understand, Rico doesn't have a bunch of employees. His expenses are very low. He's got some software, he's got some basics, but that's a highly profitable business. working from home. And, you know, I mean, it really is amazing. So that's how you developed your niche. Let me ask you a couple more questions. How do you, Rico, define success? Because it's different for everybody.
Me personally, with my disability, my success is just moving a load, one load a day. That's success to me. My success comes with just being able to overcome the obstacle itself. Because me, I'm one that I love to try different things, and as long as I can do it, I became a freight broker. I consider myself a freight broker once I started moving at least 5 loads a week. That's
Yeah,
when
load a day.
do this.
Load a day.
I can really do this. 5 loads a week, I could do this. You know what I mean? But things got serious and really picked up, and hey, I'm just running with the game. I'm just letting it guide me. As long as the load's coming in, I'm figuring out a way to move them. And that comes with, you know, building a good carrier network as well. So
yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So let me ask you this. What do you think are the most important qualities, traits of someone who's going to be successful as a freight broker?
Oh man, you have to have passion. You definitely have to have passion about what you're doing. You have to be willing to fight reluctance, because you're definitely going to meet a lot of reluctance. You have to have the motivation. You have to be self-motivated. You have to be an awesome salesperson. Sometimes I told someone this the other day. When I made my first cold call, it took me, I think I picked up the phone and hung it up about 20 times because I was nervous. And y'all, it's hot down here, so forgive the sweating. I'm in South Carolina, so forgive the sweating. But it took me about an hour to just finally make that first call. But after I made that call, it was like a breath. I was ready. I actually used an alter ego. So I'm not Rico Brown when I'm making phone calls. I'm Superman. You know what I mean? I changed myself because you have to find that confidence somewhere. And some people are just shy. And I used to be shy by nature, but I kind of broken out of that shell because I become someone else when I'm on the phone. I even change my accents when I'm on the phone, just to make the person feel comfortable. If they're in Alabama, I have an Alabama accent. If they're in New York, I try to have a New York accent. I just try to adjust and just do what's necessary to get the sale, pretty much.
Yeah, and the thing is, what you're doing is you are using those strategies as a way to build instant rapport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people like themselves. Okay, yes. You know, so ultimately, those little things that you're doing with, you know, say for example, how fast you speak, or your accent, or the phrases that you use. You know, I love that idea. I love that thought process of putting on an alter ego to get yourself to make those calls. I love that, because it's all about your mindset. It's all about changing the framework that you've been living in, where everybody fears rejection, you know what I mean? And so you overcoming that with that little hack, I love that. I think that's a great idea.
Dennis, I've been you a couple times on the call.
I love it.
I've been you. I've actually thought, what would Dennis say in this moment? You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to step out of yourself a little bit, and
that's right,
and do what makes you feel comfortable, because you know, sometimes being you don't get it all the time. You know, so I don't know if you understand that, but sometimes you have to be the person you want to be instead of just being who you are. You know what I mean? Sometimes, and then if you be the person you want to be over a period of time, you notice yourself changing.
Yeah,
you get the courage to make that next phone call, to keep on going, and that's what I did.
I love it. All right, listen. Next question. This is an important one, okay? Because I think this is one that people can really learn from and embrace, and that is, what has been the biggest challenge from going from true startup, right? You had no experience. You went out, got your freight broker authority. You took my training. To now, you did over 20,000 in profit in the last 30 days. What has been your single biggest challenge? And I know there's been a bunch, right? But if you had to pick one to highlight, which one really jumps out at you?
Establishing my credit rating. And I am still working on it today. One of my biggest regrets is that I didn't use a factoring company my first year, I used my own money. Fortunately, I was able to do that. It saved me money by not allowing me to establish a credit rating online. Even though I've done these sales, done these profits over this last month, I was actually turned down by a lot of carriers because of my credit rating.
Yep.
But I'm fortunate to be able to establish a good connection with the carriers within my state to be able to run these loads for me. I build a good credit rating on their scale anyway. So as long as I can keep these trucks moving, I'm good.
Before we hit go live on this, you mentioned something about how when you get a load, it's already covered. Could you talk to the audience a little bit about that, about
yes.
your carrier relationships and how you've built those relationships and the power of those relationships?
Yes. Once I got my authority, I reached out, and I know that a lot of times I search for customers within a 100-mile radius. Then I expand to 200 to 300. So what I knew I was going to be working the majority in my state. So basically what I did was contact every flatbed carrier company within my state, and either through email or phone call, and let them know that I was a new broker. I don't have a credit rating yet. I was honest, but I pay up front, and my net pay is within 7 to 14 days. And as soon as I get a BOL, I send a check out. So I had no problem with anyone. So basically, I established the relationship with these carriers, and I use the same carriers over and over and over again. So I have about 20 carriers that I've worked with consistently over the 2 years. So I think about, I stated about 85% of the time I don't have to post. So I really, because I have these carriers, a lot of times my loads are already covered before. I know who I can call. And it actually saves a lot of money because I can negotiate a better rate with the individual that I know than I could when I post online. So that actually saves me money, makes me more money as well. So I love doing that.
Yeah, it saves you money. It saves you time. It makes things very predictable. It makes things very sustainable. It makes things less stressful, right?
Yeah.
When you see, the problem with a lot of brokers is they're what I call post and hope brokers. So all they ever do is post to the load board, and they're hoping that they can just find any carrier to cover that load. And I get it. Some niches are more difficult than others. Your niche based on geography allowed you to do that outreach, that targeted outreach to your carriers and develop that relationship. So that's something the audience should take from this. And that is, the relationship with carriers is critically important. If you're putting a new carrier on every single load, number one, you got to vet that carrier. You got to set that carrier up. They got to prove you with their factoring company. Or they got to do whatever. And the thing is if you use the same carriers over and over again, you're going to build a real relationship. That carrier is going to now has a win-win beneficial relationship with you. And whenever they're empty, you're going to be their first call. They're going to call you. You're not going to have to call them every single time, right?
Yes, I'm in the process. I have a group on Facebook.
Yep.
Where a lot of my carriers and a lot of my customers are actually in my group. So I post a lot of my loads in my group, and I get a lot of calls in my, from posting in my group.
Yeah.
So a lot of my loads are actually covered. Oh man, Dennis, I'll be honest. Every load that I've had has been covered within 15 minutes or less.
Say what?
Yeah, just imagine that, guys. For those of you that have struggled to find carriers for a load, who have spent hours and hours and even days and days trying to cover a load, that's going to give you, that's what I want you to, one of the biggest things I would take away from this interview is I want you to understand your carrier relationships are equally, if not more important than your customer relationships. So as a broker, we have two primary stakeholders, right? Those stakeholders are customers, of course, because without freight, we can't do anything, right? But also carriers. And so you have to focus on the relationships with the carriers just as much, if not more, than the customers. Because the fact is, if you don't make that marriage and you can't predictably put that freight on a truck and get it to pick up on time in good condition with no problem, you're going to struggle as a broker. And everybody struggles when they first start. And it takes most people a lot longer to learn that value that you instilled in your business and how you did that. So kudos to you for that. Let me ask you, if you knew what you knew now and you were back to startup day one, what, if anything, would you do differently?
I would definitely use a factoring company.
Okay.
That would be number one.
Yeah.
I would also train someone else besides me to do the job, because I have a disability and my health is not always up to par. So I think that if you're the only one doing your job, you need to be training someone to assist you in it, because there are going to be some times where you're not going to feel well, but you're going to have some loads that you're going to have to cover. You still have a responsibility to your customer.
That's right.
To cover those loads. So I'm actually teaching my mom. So my mom, I was actually, and this is no lie, I was actually on the way to the emergency room. And I had a load that I had to fill, and I just talked my mom through it. And she did a great job. She made me $600.
I love it.
I gave her half of it. She got commission.
That's perfect. I love it.
So now she's actually interested in learning more of the business. So I would teach someone, how to do what you're doing.
I think that's a great lesson, which is creating some sort of redundancy.
Exactly.
Life is going to happen. Your health everybody gets sick and has health related issues at some point, whether it be week 1, year 5, and having that sort of plan in place, takes a lot of stress off too, because that if you're not feeling well, you've got somebody there that can support your customers and continue on with the business. It makes it much more sustainable. So I love that. One more question. What advice would you leave the audience with, new brokers? Predominantly what we have here is people that are considering becoming a broker or newer brokers. What's the biggest piece of advice you would give to the audience?
Don't doubt yourself. And don't be afraid to get started. The hardest thing is making that first call. Take a deep breath and dial the numbers and put up that alter ego if you have to. And just always, me personally, I never ever try to sell someone on the first call. I try to establish rapport. I think that's more important. If you get to know a person and befriend them, they'll be more likely to work with you. I said I only have one customer that I've made this money off of, but I actually have about 6 customers now. I just got a text from a new customer that was referred by the customer that I just did these 120 loads for.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
So I'm actually in the process of moving about 4 loads now, and this guy just texted me and asked if I could move 4 more. And this is like a last minute load. So I know I'm going to make some money on this. He needs this stuff moved by Wednesday, so it has to be there. So I love last minute loads. I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, I love it.
Don't be afraid to take last minute loads. They pay more. And just have faith in yourself. You have to have faith in yourself, and you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't, then your customer is not going to believe in you.
That's right.
And I think I actually posted something. Don't doubt yourself at all, because I think customers can smell doubt, and they definitely can hear it in your voice.
100%.
And don't just use cold calls. Get out of the office. Even I get out. I don't just sit here at home. I get out and roll about to any industrial park that I can find. So, and they love it when you come to see them. That shows dedication. So always figure out creative ways to find customers. Ask your friends, talk to your friends. Don't just sit and make cold calls. You got to get out there and do the work. And this cold calling is just one part of it.
I love it, Rico. Listen, you're very inspiring. I truly appreciate you being here. For anybody who's listening right now, if you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, and you want to work from home, whether you have disabilities or not, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. We've trained over 10,000 students, been in business over a decade, and we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee if for any reason you're not happy. Check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Truly appreciate you guys being here.